Hello everyone, I'm Monoscaling here to guide you today. If you use this video to drift off to sleep, please tap like, hit subscribe, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is there. Now settle in, get cozy, and let yourself relax. My name is Derek Lewis, and I need to tell someone what happened at Fish Lake National Forest last October. I've tried talking to the police, to my therapist, to anyone who'll listen, but nobody believes me. They say it was stress, altitude sickness, some kind of shared delusion. But I know what I saw. I know what we all saw. It started as a simple RV trip. My wife Claire and I had been talking about getting away for months. We'd been married 8 years, both working 60-hour weeks at our respective firms in Salt Lake City, and we were starting to feel like roommates instead of partners. Claire suggested we rent an RV and spend a long weekend somewhere remote. She'd read about Fish Lake National Forest online, the fall colors, the famous Pando aspen grove, the quiet campgrounds. We picked up the RV on a Thursday morning in early October, a 32-foot Class A motorhome, white with blue stripes. Claire handled most of the driving since she'd grown up camping with her family. I'd only been camping twice in my life, both times in college, both times drunk. But I was willing to try anything to fix what felt broken between us. The drive took about 3 hours. We listened to a true crime podcast for the first hour, then switched to music, then eventually just drove in silence, the kind of silence that felt heavy. Around noon, we pulled into the Bowery Creek campground. It was mostly empty, just us and maybe 3 other RVs scattered across the sites. The campground host, an older man with a gray beard and a John Deere cap, checked us in and gave us a map. "You folks here for the Aspens?" he asked. "That's the plan," Claire said. "Best time of year for it. Just watch the weather, supposed to drop into the 30s tonight." We thanked him and drove to our site. It was a pull-through spot at the far end of the campground, backing up to a dense section of aspen and pine. Claire parked the RV while I got out to guide her. We had full hookups, water, electric, sewage, the works. By the time we got everything set up, it was almost 2 o'clock. Claire wanted to go for a hike before dinner, so we grabbed our jackets and headed out on one of the trails behind our site. The aspens were incredible, gold and orange against the dark green pines. We walked for about an hour, taking pictures, barely talking. At one point, Claire reached for my hand. I held it, but it felt perfunctory. We got back to the RV around 4:30. That's when I first noticed something was off. "It's getting dark," I said. Claire looked up from her phone. "What?" "It's getting dark. Look." She glanced out the window. The light had that pre-dusk quality to it, that orange-gray wash that usually comes around 6 or 7 in the fall. "That's weird," she said. "It's not even 5 yet. Maybe the trees are blocking the sun," I offered. "Maybe." But she looked uneasy. We both did. I started making dinner while Claire set up the outdoor chairs and tried to get a fire going in the campground's metal ring. I kept glancing out the window. The light was fading fast. By 5:15, it looked like 6:30. By 5:30, it was nearly dark. Claire came back inside, her face pale. "Derek, something's not right." "I know. The sun doesn't set this early. Not in October. Not anywhere." I pulled out my phone and checked the sunset time for the area. According to my weather app, the sun wasn't supposed to set until 6:47 p.m. It was 5:38 p.m., and it was already almost full dark outside. "Could be a storm coming in," I said, though I didn't believe it. Claire shook her head. "The sky's clear. I just checked." We stood there in the RV's little kitchen, both of us trying to rationalize something that didn't make sense. Then the lights flickered. "That's just the hookup," I said quickly. "Old campground electrical." But the lights steadied and we both relaxed slightly. I finished making spaghetti while Claire opened a bottle of wine. We ate at the small dinette table, the RV's interior lights making the windows look like black mirrors. Neither of us mentioned the early darkness. We talked about work, about Claire's sister's upcoming wedding, about anything that wasn't the wrongness pressing in from outside. Around 7 o'clock, I went outside to throw away our trash. The campground had a dumpster about 50 yards from our site, near the entrance. I grabbed my phone for a flashlight and headed out. It was cold. Colder than it should have been. My breath came out in visible clouds. I walked quickly, my light bouncing ahead of me on the gravel path. The other RVs I'd seen earlier had their lights on, warm yellow rectangles in the darkness. I felt better seeing them. I tossed our trash bag into the dumpster and turned to head back. That's when I saw it. Something was standing at the tree line. I stopped walking. My phone's light didn't reach that far, but I could see a shape, human-sized, maybe a little taller, just standing there perfectly still. "Hello?" I called out. No response. The shape didn't move. "Can I help you?" Nothing. I started walking backward, keeping my light pointed in that direction. The shape remained motionless. I turned and walked fast back to our RV, not quite running but close. When I got inside, I locked the door behind me. "You okay?" Claire asked. She was sitting on the couch reading a book. "Yeah, fine. You look spooked." "Just cold," I said. I didn't tell her about the shape. I told myself it was probably just a tree or a shadow, but I knew what I'd seen. We watched a movie on Claire's laptop, some romantic comedy neither of us really paid attention to. Around 9:30, Claire started yawning. "I'm going to bed," she said. "You coming?" "In a bit. I'm not tired yet." She kissed my forehead and disappeared into the back bedroom. I heard the door close, then the sound of her getting ready for bed. I sat on the couch, staring at my phone, not really reading anything, just scrolling. That's when I heard the footsteps. They were outside, on gravel. Steady, measured steps, walking along the side of the RV. I stood up slowly, moving toward the window. I pulled back the curtain an inch. Someone was walking past our RV. I could only see their legs and torso. Dark pants, dark jacket. They moved slowly, deliberately, not like someone taking a midnight stroll. More like someone looking for something. The figure reached the front of our RV and stopped. I held my breath. Then they turned and looked directly at our window. I jerked the curtain closed. My heart was hammering. I stood there in the dark living area, one hand pressed against the wall, waiting. After a minute, I heard the footsteps resume. They circled around to the other side of the RV, then faded away. I waited another 5 minutes before I moved. Then I went to every window and made sure all the curtains were closed. I checked both locks on the door. I even went to the bedroom and checked the emergency exit window, making sure it was latched. Claire was already asleep, her phone charging on the nightstand. I climbed into bed beside her and lay there staring at the ceiling. I could hear her breathing, slow and even. Outside, I heard nothing. No wind, no animals, no other campers, just silence. I must have fallen asleep at some point because I woke up to Claire shaking my shoulder. Derek, wake up." I opened my eyes. The bedroom was dark. "What time is it?" I mumbled. "It's almost 9. In the morning?" "Yes." "And Derek, it's still dark outside." I sat up fast. "What?" "It's 9 o'clock in the morning and it's still completely dark." I grabbed my phone. 8:47 a.m. I turned on the flashlight and went to the window. Claire pulled back the curtain. Outside was absolute darkness, not even dawn light, just black. "This isn't possible," I said. Claire was breathing fast, her face tight with fear. "I know." "Did you check the front windows?" "Yes, all of them. It's dark everywhere." I went through the RV, looking out every window. She was right. Complete darkness, as if the sun hadn't risen at all. "We need to talk to the campground host," I said. "Or the other campers." "Someone." Claire nodded. She was still in her pajamas, but she quickly threw on clothes. I did the same. We both put on jackets and grabbed flashlights. I unlocked the door and we stepped outside. The cold hit me immediately. It felt like it was in the teens, much colder than the forecast predicted. Our breath formed thick clouds. I swept my flashlight across the campground. The other RVs still had their lights on. I could see them, little islands of light in the darkness. "Let's try that one," Claire said, pointing to the nearest RV, maybe 30 yards away. We walked over, our lights bouncing on the gravel. When we got close, I knocked on the door. "Hello? Anyone there?" No answer. I knocked again, harder. "We need help, something's wrong." The lights inside stayed on, but nobody came to the door. I tried the handle. Locked. "Try the next one," Claire said. We walked to the second RV. Same thing. Lights on, no response to our knocking. When I pressed my face to the window, I could see inside. A half-eaten meal on the table, a TV on, flickering with some daytime show. But no people. The third RV was the same. Lights on, signs of recent occupation, but nobody home. "Where did they go?" Claire whispered. "I don't know." We headed toward the campground host's building near the entrance. It was a small structure with a covered porch and a sign that said, "Office." The lights were on inside. I tried the door. Unlocked. "Hello?" I called out, stepping inside. The office was small, just a desk, a filing cabinet, and a bulletin board covered in local maps and notices. A coffee maker on a side table still had half a pot, lukewarm. The computer on the desk was on, showing a screensaver of a forest scene, but no host, no people. "Derek," Claire said from the doorway. Her voice was shaking. "Look," she was pointing at the bulletin board. I walked over. Pinned to the board was a handwritten note, recent, the ink still dark. It read, "If it goes dark, stay inside. Don't look at it." "What does that mean?" Claire asked. "I don't know." I looked around the office for anything else that might explain what was happening. In the trash can, I found several crumpled pieces of paper. I smoothed one out. It was the same handwriting as the note on the board, but the message was different. Day 3, sun didn't rise. Thompson left to get help. Hasn't come back. We're running out of food. Day 3. If this note was real, it meant this had been happening for days, but that didn't make sense. We'd only arrived yesterday. The sun had been shining then. Claire was reading over my shoulder. This can't be real. This has to be some kind of joke. Does this feel like a joke to you? She didn't answer. We left the office and stood on the porch. I checked my phone. No signal. I'd had 3 bars yesterday when we arrived. Let's get back to the RV, I said. We'll figure this out. As we walked back, I kept thinking about that note. Don't look at it. Look at what? We were halfway to our site when Claire grabbed my arm. Derek, stop. I stopped. What? Listen. I listened. At first I heard nothing. Then I realized that was exactly what was wrong. Complete silence. No birds, no wind, no distant traffic, nothing. This is wrong, Claire said. Her voice was high and tight. This is all wrong. We need to leave now. Okay, we'll pack up and go. We hurried back to the RV. Inside, I started unhooking the electrical and water connections while Claire secured everything inside. My hands were shaking. I kept dropping the connections, having to pick them up and try again. Finally, everything was disconnected. I climbed into the driver's seat. Claire sat in the passenger seat, her arms wrapped around herself. Ready? I asked. She nodded. I turned the key. Nothing happened. I tried again. The engine didn't even turn over. No clicking, no sounds at all, like the battery was completely dead. No, I muttered. I tried a 3rd time. Nothing. What's wrong? Claire asked. I don't know. The battery shouldn't be dead. We've been plugged in. I got out and checked under the hood. Everything looked normal. I checked the battery terminals. Fine. I tried the ignition again. Dead. Fuck. I slammed my hand on the steering wheel. Claire was crying now, quiet tears running down her face. What do we do? I don't know. We sat there in the driver's seats of the RV, the darkness pressing in around us. I checked my phone again. Still no signal. 10:23 a.m., and it was still pitch black outside. We could walk out, I said. It's only 3 miles to the main road. In complete darkness without knowing what's out there. What else do we do? Sit here and wait? Claire wiped her eyes. The note said to stay inside. The note was written by someone who might be dead. She flinched at that, but didn't argue. We sat in silence for a minute. Then Claire said, I heard something last night. What? Footsteps. Outside the RV. I thought it was you at first, but then I realized you were lying next to me. I heard them too, and I saw someone earlier by the tree line. Why didn't you tell me? I thought I was imagining it. Claire's hands were shaking. What if that's what the note meant? What if there's something out there and we're not supposed to look at it? That doesn't make sense. None of this makes sense. She was right. We sat there, both of us trying to think of a rational explanation. Maybe it was a solar eclipse, but eclipses don't last for hours. Maybe it was a volcanic eruption somewhere blocking out the sun with ash, but we would have heard about that on the news. Maybe we were both asleep and dreaming, but we weren't. Around 11 o'clock, I decided to check the other RVs again. Maybe someone had come back. Maybe there was a generator we could use to jumpstart our battery. I'll come with you, Claire said. No, you stay here. Lock the door behind me. Derek, I'll be quick. 10 minutes. If I'm not back in 15, you lock yourself in the bathroom and don't come out. She didn't like it, but she agreed. I grabbed my flashlight and headed out. The cold was even worse now. I could feel it seeping through my jacket, making my bones ache. I went to the first RV again. This time I didn't knock. I tried to open the door, still locked. I moved to a window and shined my light inside. Everything looked the same as before. Half-eaten food, TV on. But this time I noticed something I'd missed earlier. On the floor near the couch was a dark stain. It looked wet. I moved to the next RV. Same thing. Lights on, no people. I checked the third RV, the one farthest from our site. The door was open. I stood there, staring at the open door swinging slightly in a breeze I couldn't feel. My instinct was to run back to Claire, but I needed to know. I climbed the steps slowly, my flashlight held in front of me. Hello? My voice echoed in the empty interior. I stepped inside. The RV was destroyed, furniture overturned, cushions torn open, cabinets hanging open with their contents spilled everywhere, and there was blood. Not a lot, but enough. Dark droplets on the floor, a smear on the wall. I backed out quickly and jumped down from the RV. My heart was racing. I started walking back toward our site, then walking faster, then running. I got to our RV and pounded on the door. Claire, open up! The door unlocked and I scrambled inside. Claire's face was white. What happened? One of the RVs. Someone's dead or hurt. There's blood. Oh my God. We need to barricade ourselves in. Now. We spent the next hour making our RV as secure as possible. I pushed the dinette table against the main door. Claire piled luggage against the emergency exit. We checked every window lock twice. Then we sat on the couch, both of us holding our flashlights, and waited. For what, I didn't know. Around 1 o'clock, we heard the footsteps again. They started at the front of the RV and moved slowly along the side. Heavy footsteps, like someone wearing boots. They reached the back, circled around, came up the other side. Then they stopped at the door. Claire grabbed my hand. We sat frozen, not breathing. The door handle rattled. Someone was trying to get in. The handle twisted back and forth, testing the lock, then stopped. We heard a soft sound, like breathing. Then the footsteps moved away. We waited 5 minutes in complete silence before either of us moved. What was that? Claire whispered. I don't know. Was it a person? I think so. But why would someone try to break in? I didn't have an answer for that. The rest of the afternoon passed in tense silence. We didn't talk much. We sat on the couch, sometimes checking our phones, sometimes just staring at the walls. The RV's battery was running down. The lights were dimmer now. Around 3 o'clock by my phone's clock, though it was still completely dark outside, and Claire said, I'm hungry. We made sandwiches in the darkening RV, eating them without tasting them. I kept thinking about the note. Don't look at it. What were we not supposed to look at? The darkness itself? Something in the darkness? At 4 o'clock, I decided to try the RV's generator. Maybe we could at least charge our phones and keep the lights on. I went outside, Claire protesting the whole time, and fired up the generator. It roared to life, startlingly loud in the silence. I hurried back inside. The lights brightened. We both felt a little better with the full lighting. Claire plugged in her phone to charge. I did the same. We should try to sleep, she said. Take shifts watching. Okay, you go first. I'll wake you in a few hours. She went to the bedroom and closed the door. I sat on the couch, my flashlight in my lap, staring at the curtained windows. I didn't mean to fall asleep, but I must have, because I woke up to Claire screaming. I jumped up and ran to the bedroom. She was sitting up in bed, pointing at the window. Something's looking in, she shrieked. I grabbed my flashlight and moved to the window. Through a gap in the curtain, I could see darkness. But as I watched, something moved past the window. A shape, darker than the darkness around it. Then it was gone. Did you see it? Claire was gasping, hyperventilating. I saw something. It was looking right at me, Derek. I could feel it. I sat on the bed and held her while she cried. After a while, she calmed down enough to talk. What do we do? She asked. We wait for morning. Real morning. What if morning never comes? I didn't have an answer. We moved back to the living area, both of us too scared to split up. We sat on the couch, huddled together under a blanket, and waited. The RV's heater was running, but I felt cold all the way through. At some point, my phone said it was 6 o'clock in the evening, but I'd lost all sense of time. We heard voices. They were distant, muffled, coming from outside. Multiple voices, talking over each other. Do you hear that? Claire whispered. Yeah. Should we look? No. Remember the note. But the voices grew louder, more insistent. I recognized one of them. It was my brother, Mark. He died 3 years ago in a car accident. Derek, the voice called. Derek, we need help out here. Claire looked at me. That's Mark. No, it's not. Mark's dead. But it sounds like him. It's not him. The voices continued, a chorus now. Mark, my mother, friends I hadn't seen in years. All calling for me, asking for help, begging me to come outside. Claire started to stand up. I grabbed her arm. Don't. But they need help. It's not real, Claire. None of it's real. The voices grew louder, more frantic. Then suddenly they stopped. The silence that followed was worse than the voices. We sat there, both of us trembling, waiting for something else to happen. Nothing did. Around 8 o'clock, the generator sputtered and died. We'd run out of fuel. The lights went out, plunging us into darkness. Our phone flashlights provided small circles of light, but they made the darkness around us feel deeper. Batteries at 10%, Claire said, looking at her phone. Mine was at 15. We turned off the flashlights to conserve power. In the darkness, Claire said, I don't think we're going to make it. Don't say that. I'm serious, Derek. I don't think whatever's out there is going to let us leave. We'll figure something out, we always do. But I didn't believe it. For the first time, I considered that we might actually die here. Starve in this RV or freeze or be killed by whatever was circling us in the darkness. Claire must have been thinking the same thing because she said, I'm sorry. For what? For dragging you out here. For making you go camping when you didn't want to. This isn't your fault. I just wanted us to be close again like we used to be. I felt tears on my cheeks. I know. We held each other in the darkness, both of us crying. All the fights we'd had over the past year, All the distance between us, it all felt so stupid now. So meaningless. I love you, I told her. I love you too. We sat like that for a long time. Eventually, Claire fell asleep against my shoulder. I stayed awake, listening. Around what I thought might be midnight, my phone was dead now, so I couldn't be sure. I heard something on the roof of the RV. Footsteps, slow, deliberate footsteps walking back and forth above us. I gently moved Claire aside and stood up. The footsteps continued, pacing the length of the RV. Whatever was up there was big. I could hear the roof creaking under its weight. Then the footsteps stopped, directly above me. I stood there in the darkness, looking up. I heard breathing. Wet, raspy breathing. Then a voice. My voice. My exact voice. Let me in, Claire. I didn't respond. I didn't move. I barely breathed. Claire. The voice said again. Still my voice, but wrong somehow. Like a recording played slightly too slow. I need to come inside. It's cold out here. On the couch, Claire stirred but didn't wake. Claire, please. I'm scared. The breathing grew louder, more labored. Then the footsteps resumed, moving to the front of the RV. I heard them climb down the side, then stop at the door. The door handle rattled. Claire, why won't you let me in? Don't you love me? The handle twisted back and forth violently. The door shook in its frame. The table I'd pushed against it scraped across the floor slightly. Claire! The shout was so loud it woke her. She sat up, disoriented. Derek, I'm here, I said quickly. Don't move. The door shaking stopped. The silence that followed was absolute. Claire got up and moved toward me in the darkness. She found my hand and held it. What was that? She whispered. Something trying to sound like me. Oh God. We stood there, hands clasped, waiting for the next attack. But it didn't come. After what felt like hours, we moved back to the couch and sat down. My phone's dead, I said. Mine too. We sat in complete darkness. No way to tell time, no way to call for help, no way to do anything but wait. At some point, I must have dozed off again because I woke to Claire shaking me. Derek, look. I opened my eyes. At first, I didn't understand what she meant. Then I saw it. Light. Actual light, filtering through the curtains. I jumped up and ran to the window, pulling back the curtain. Outside, the sky was gray with dawn. Real dawn. Oh, thank God, Claire sobbed. Oh, thank God. We watched the sun rise, both of us crying with relief. It took about an hour for full daylight to arrive. The most beautiful sunrise I've ever seen. When it was fully light, I opened the door carefully. The campground looked normal. The other RVs were still there, lights off now. The office building stood undisturbed. I couldn't hear anything except birds and wind in the trees. Let's try the truck again, I said. We went to the driver's seat. I turned the key, not expecting anything. The engine roared to life. It works, Claire shouted. It fucking works. I didn't waste time. I put the RV in gear and we pulled out of the site, leaving everything unhooked, not caring. We drove through the campground toward the exit. As we passed the other RVs, I glanced at them. They all looked abandoned. Doors hanging open, windows dark. We reached the campground office. The host was standing outside watching us drive past. The same older man with the gray beard and John Deere cap. He waved at us. I didn't wave back. I pressed harder on the gas. We drove for 3 hours straight, not stopping, barely speaking. When we finally hit Salt Lake City and saw other cars, other people, normal civilization, we both started crying again. We returned the RV that afternoon, telling the rental company there had been a mechanical issue. We didn't mention anything else. They didn't ask questions. That was 3 weeks ago. Since then, I've tried to research what happened. I've looked for news stories about Fish Lake National Forest, about Bowery Creek Campground, about other campers reporting strange phenomena. I've found nothing. The campground still shows up on booking sites. It has recent reviews, all positive. I've called the ranger station. They have no record of any incidents. The campground host I spoke to, a woman named Diane, said they haven't had a male host in 5 years. Claire thinks we should see a psychiatrist together. Maybe we both had some kind of shared psychotic episode. Stress-induced hallucinations. But I know what I experienced. I know what I heard and saw and felt. Last night I woke up at 3:06 a.m. I went to the bedroom window and pulled back the curtain. Our house is in a suburban neighborhood, streetlights every 50 feet. Normally I can see 3 or 4 houses from our bedroom window. But last night, it was dark. Completely dark. Like someone had thrown a blanket over the world. I stood there, watching the darkness. Then something moved in it, a shape, darker than the darkness around it. I closed the curtain quickly and got back in bed. Claire was asleep beside me. I lay there until morning, not sleeping, just waiting. The sun rose normally, everything was fine, but tonight I'm scared. Because it's October 14th, and the sun just set. I checked the time. It was 3:52 p.m. According to my weather app, sunset isn't supposed to happen until 6:38 p.m. Claire's in the living room, reading. She hasn't noticed yet. I'm sitting here in our bedroom writing this down, trying to figure out what to do, because I can hear footsteps outside. George 2. On our porch, circling our house. My name is Lisa Morgan, and I need to tell someone what happened at Fish Lake National Forest last month before I forget the details. Before my mind does what it's been trying to do since we got back, which has convinced me that none of it was real. We went in late September. Me, my boyfriend Josh, and our friends Marcus and Jen. We'd all taken the week off work, which felt like a miracle since we all had different jobs with different schedules. Marcus worked IT for some healthcare company. Jen did graphic design freelance. Josh managed a sporting goods store. I am a third-grade teacher. The timing just worked out, and Marcus found this RV rental place in Salt Lake City that gave us a deal on a 30-footer. None of us had done the RV thing before. We were tent campers, backpackers, but Jen had just had knee surgery in July and wasn't up for anything too strenuous, so we figured this would be a good compromise. We could still get out into nature, but we'd have beds and a bathroom and a kitchen. Marcus joked that we were getting soft. He was probably right. The drive from Salt Lake to Fish Lake took about 3 hours. Josh drove because he was the only one who felt comfortable handling something that size. I sat up front with him, and Marcus and Jen took the dinette seats in back. The RV smelled like fake pine air freshener and old carpet. There were water stains on the ceiling that the rental guy had assured us were cosmetic only. Fish Lake National Forest covers over 1 million acres, so finding the right campground wasn't simple. We'd picked a site near Fish Lake itself, actual name not very creative, because it was supposed to be less crowded than some of the other areas. The reservation said Pelican Overlook Campground, full hookups, which meant we'd have water and electricity and sewage. Fancy. We got there around 4 in the afternoon. The campground host, an older guy named Dale with a gray beard and a Broncos cap, checked us in and showed us to our spot. Number 47. He made small talk about the weather and the fish, told us the bathroom facilities were clean but the showers only had hot water in the mornings. Standard camping stuff. He seemed normal. Everyone seemed normal. Our spot was decent, a gravel pad with a picnic table and a fire ring surrounded by aspens that had already started turning yellow. There were maybe 20 other sites in the campground, and it looked like about half were occupied. A few other RVs, some pop-up campers, one family with a massive fifth wheel that probably cost more than my car. Josh backed the RV into the spot after only 2 tries, which felt like a victory. We spent the next hour getting set up, leveling the RV, hooking up the water and electric, figuring out how to work the propane. Marcus kept reading the manual out loud in this dramatic voice that made Jen laugh. It felt good, normal. We were 4 friends in our early 30s taking a camping trip, and the biggest problem we had was figuring out which switch controlled which light. We made dinner on the propane stove, just pasta and jarred sauce, nothing fancy, and ate at the picnic table outside as the sun set. The temperature dropped fast once the sun went down, which I hadn't been prepared for. I'd brought a hoodie, but I ended up going inside to grab my heavier jacket. After dinner, we built a fire in the fire ring. Marcus had brought marshmallows and chocolate and graham crackers because apparently we were 12 years old, but nobody complained. We sat around the fire making s'mores and talking about nothing important, work gossip, shows we were watching. Marcus and Jen had been dating for 6 years, and there was this ongoing joke about when he'd finally propose. He'd roll his eyes and say, "When the time is right," and she'd throw something at him. Josh and I had been together for almost 2 years. We'd met at a friend's barbecue, and he'd spent 20 minutes telling me about this hike he'd done in the Wasatch Mountains where he'd seen a moose, which sounds boring when I write it out but somehow wasn't at the time. He had this way of getting excited about things that made you want to be excited too. Around 10, the family with the fifth wheel came over to our fire. The dad, whose name was Rick, asked if we had an extra propane tank because theirs had run out. Josh went to check our storage compartment and found a spare. Rick thanked us and invited us over for coffee in the morning. His wife smiled and waved from their campsite. They had 2 kids, maybe 8 and 10, who were running around with flashlights. We stayed up until almost midnight. The fire burned down to coals and we probably should have put it out, but we just let it die on its own. The temperature had dropped into the 40s, and I could see my breath when I talked. The stars were incredible. You forget how many there are when you live in a city. When we finally went inside the RV, Marcus called dibs on the bed over the cab, which made sense because he and Jen were sharing. Josh and I got the bedroom in the back, which wasn't really a bedroom so much as a bed with thin walls around it. You could hear everything in an RV. Everything. Josh joked that we'd have to be quiet, and I told him we'd have to be corpses. We didn't end up having sex anyway. We were both tired, and the bed was weirdly uncomfortable. Too soft in some places, too hard in others. I lay there listening to the RV creak and settle. Outside, I could hear wind in the aspens and something that might have been an owl. Eventually, I fell asleep. I woke up around 3 in the morning because I had to pee. The RV had a bathroom, but I'd been trying to avoid using it because it was cramped, and the smell of the chemicals they used was making me nauseous. I grabbed my phone for the flashlight and stumbled up the narrow hallway to the bathroom anyway. When I flushed, the sound seemed incredibly loud. I hoped it didn't wake anyone. On my way back to bed, I glanced out the window above the dinette. Our campsite was dark except for the coals in the fire ring, which were still glowing faintly, but I could see lights in some of the other campsites. Lanterns or flashlights, probably. One of them seemed to be moving through the trees. I thought about that for a second, then decided it was just someone going to the bathroom or getting something from their car. I went back to bed. Josh had sprawled out across most of the mattress, so I had to push him over. He mumbled something in his sleep, but didn't wake up. The next morning felt fine, normal. We got up around 8, and Marcus made coffee in the RV's little coffee maker. It tasted like hot water that had been near coffee once, but nobody complained. Rick and his family had invited us over, but we decided to do our own thing instead. Jen wanted to drive around the forest and see if we could find some good photo spots. We spent most of the day just exploring. Fish Lake was pretty. Blue water surrounded by mountains that still had snow on the peaks. We drove on forest roads that turned to dirt and gravel, stopped at a few trailheads, hiked for an hour or two. Nothing strenuous. Jen's knee held up okay, though she was limping a little by the afternoon. At one point, we stopped at a pullout to eat the sandwiches we'd packed, and Josh wandered off to take a leak. He was gone for maybe 5 minutes, and when he came back, he had this weird look on his face. "You okay?" I asked. He nodded. "Yeah, there's something dead back there. A deer, I think. Pretty torn up." Marcus asked if it looked fresh, and Josh shrugged. "I don't know. I didn't get too close. The smell was bad." We finished our sandwiches and moved on. I didn't think much of it at the time. Animals die in the woods. It happens. We got back to the campground around 6. Dale, the host, was making his rounds, and he stopped by our site to ask how we were doing. We told him about the deer, and he nodded like it was no big deal. "Mountain lions," he said. "We've got a healthy population. They usually avoid people, but they'll take down a deer no problem." Jen asked if we needed to worry, and Dale said no, not really. Just don't leave food out. Keep your distance if you see one. Basic stuff. That night, we cooked burgers on the fire ring grill. Marcus had brought a Bluetooth speaker, and we listened to music while we ate. The family with the fifth wheel came over again, Rick and his wife, Sarah. The kids were already in bed. They sat with us for a while and had a beer. Rick worked in construction, and Sarah was a nurse. They lived in Provo and came up to Fish Lake a few times a year. "It's one of the last places that still feels remote," Sarah said. "Not too crowded, peaceful." Around 10, they headed back to their site, and we kept the fire going for a while longer. Josh was sitting next to me, and at some point he put his hand on my knee. Not in a sexual way, just in a, "Hey, I'm here" way. It felt nice. That was the last normal night. The next day started the same. Coffee, breakfast, plans to drive to a different part of the forest. But while we were cleaning up from breakfast, Josh said his stomach hurt. At first, I thought it was just something he ate. Marcus had made scrambled eggs that were a little undercooked, but Josh said it wasn't that kind of pain. It was sharp, like a cramp, and it came and went. "Maybe you pulled something hiking yesterday," Jen suggested. Josh didn't think so, but he agreed to take it easy. We decided to stay at the campsite instead of driving anywhere. Marcus and Jen walked down to the lake. Josh and I stayed at the RV. He lay down on the couch, and I read a book at the dinette table. Around noon, Josh said he wanted to take a walk. He felt restless, which I understood. Being cooped up in an RV isn't fun. I asked if he wanted company, but he said no. He'd just walk around the campground loop and be back in 20 minutes. He was gone for an hour. I tried not to worry. I told myself he'd probably run into someone and started chatting, or maybe he'd found a trail he wanted to check out. But when he finally came back, he looked exhausted. His face was pale, and there was sweat on his forehead even though it wasn't hot out. "Jesus, Josh, are you okay?" He nodded and sat down heavily at the picnic table. "I'm fine. I don't know." I felt dizzy for a minute. I got him water, and he drank the whole bottle without stopping. Then he said he wanted to lie down again, so we went inside. He took off his shoes, and that's when I saw it. His ankle was red. Not just red, swollen, and there were 2 marks, like punctures, right above his hiking boot line. What the hell is that? Josh looked down at his ankle like he was seeing it for the first time. I don't know, maybe a spider? That doesn't look like a spider bite. What else would it be? I didn't have an answer. We cleaned it with some antiseptic wipes from the first aid kit and put a bandage on it. Josh said it didn't hurt that much, just throbbed a little. He lay down on the couch and fell asleep almost immediately. Marcus and Jen got back around 2. I told them what happened, and Jen wanted to drive Josh into town to get it looked at. The nearest urgent care was probably in Richfield, about 40 minutes away. But when I suggested it to Josh, he said no. He felt fine, just tired. It was probably nothing. I didn't push it. I should have. That night, Josh didn't eat much. He said he wasn't hungry, which wasn't like him at all. The guy could put away food like it was his job, but he just sat at the picnic table with us, picking at a hot dog and staring off into the trees. You sure you're okay? Marcus asked. Yeah, I'm good. But he wasn't. I could tell. There was something off about the way he was talking. Flat, distracted, like he was only half paying attention. We went to bed early. Josh fell asleep right away, but I stayed awake for a long time, listening to him breathe. It sounded fine, normal. I told myself I was worrying over nothing. I woke up in the middle of the night again. This time it wasn't because I had to pee. It was because Josh wasn't in bed. I sat up and looked around. The bedroom was dark except for a sliver of light coming from the hallway. I got up and walked toward the front of the RV. Josh was standing at the door looking outside through the window. Josh? He didn't respond. Josh, what are you doing? He turned slowly, and in the dim light, I could see his face. His expression was blank, not tired, not confused, just empty. I heard something, he said. What did you hear? I don't know. Something outside. I walked over to the window and looked out. The campground was dark and quiet. I couldn't see anything moving. There's nothing out there. Come back to bed. He stared at me for a long moment, and then he nodded and walked back to the bedroom. I followed him, and he lay down without saying another word. I wanted to ask him what he'd really heard, but I didn't. I just lay there next to him, wide awake, until the sky started to get light. The next morning, Josh seemed fine again. He ate breakfast, cereal, and toast, and joked with Marcus about something. I started to think maybe I'd overreacted. Maybe it was just a weird spider bite and he'd been half asleep when I found him at the door. But then, around mid-morning, it happened again. We were sitting outside, and Josh just stood up and started walking toward the trees. Where are you going? I called after him. He didn't answer. He just kept walking. I followed him. So did Marcus and Jen. We caught up to him about 50 feet into the woods, and when I grabbed his arm, he stopped and turned to look at me. That same blank expression. Josh, what are you doing? I don't know. His voice was quiet, almost monotone. I just needed to go this way. Why? I don't know. Marcus and Jen exchanged a look. Jen said we needed to take him to a doctor, and this time I agreed. Something was seriously wrong. We got Josh back to the RV and told him to pack a bag. We were going to drive into Richfield and get him checked out. He didn't argue, which scared me more than anything. Josh always argued. It was one of his defining traits. But before we could leave, Dale showed up. He knocked on the RV door, and when I opened it, he looked concerned. Everything okay here? I saw you folks out in the woods. I explained that Josh wasn't feeling well and we were going to take him into town. Dale nodded, but then he asked, did he get bit by something? I told him about the ankle. Dale's expression changed. He didn't look concerned anymore. He looked worried. Can I see it? I hesitated, but Dale seemed like he knew what he was doing. Josh was sitting on the couch and I asked him to show Dale his ankle. The swelling had gone down a little, but the puncture marks were still there, dark red, almost purple now. Dale stared at it for a long time. Then he said, you need to leave. What? You need to pack up and leave. Today. Right now. Why? What is it? Dale looked at me and I saw something in his eyes I didn't like. Fear. I don't know what it is, but I've seen it before. 3 years ago, a couple stayed in this campground. The husband got bit by something and a few days later Dale stopped himself. Just leave, please. Marcus asked what happened to the husband, but Dale just shook his head. You don't want to know. Trust me. We should have listened, but we didn't. Josh insisted he was fine, and Marcus said Dale was probably just some superstitious old guy trying to scare us. Even Jen, who'd been pushing for the doctor, seemed less concerned after Dale left. I was the only one who wanted to go, but I let them convince me to stay. That was my mistake. That night, Josh changed. We were sitting around the fire, and he started talking, but it wasn't normal conversation. He was telling us about the deer we'd seen, the dead one, except he was describing it in detail, details he couldn't have known unless he'd spent a lot more time looking at it than he'd said. The ribs were pulled apart, he said, his voice still flat. You could see inside. The organs were gone, just the cavity. Josh, stop, I said. He looked at me. Why? Because it's gross. It's not gross. It's just what happens. Things die, things eat them, that's how it works. Marcus laughed nervously. Okay, nature documentary. Let's talk about something else. But Josh didn't stop. He kept talking about decay and decomposition, and the way animals eat meat. He wasn't upset or excited. He was just stating facts like he was reading from a textbook. Jen finally said she was tired and went inside. Marcus followed her. I stayed with Josh because I didn't know what else to do. Josh, you're scaring me. He looked at me, and for just a second I thought I saw something in his eyes. Recognition. Fear. But then it was gone, and he was blank again. I don't mean to, he said. Then stop talking like that. I can't help it. It's just what I'm thinking about. I made him come inside. He went to bed without arguing, and I lay next to him staring at the ceiling. Around 3 in the morning I woke up because Josh was sitting up in bed. He was just sitting there, perfectly still, staring at the wall. Josh? He turned his head slowly. In the darkness I couldn't see his expression, but I could feel him looking at me. I'm so hungry, he said. I told him there were leftovers in the fridge. He didn't respond. He just kept staring at me, and then, very slowly, he smiled. It wasn't Josh's smile. It was too wide, too empty. I got out of bed and backed toward the door. Josh, you're scaring me. Stop it. He stood up. He didn't say anything. He just started walking toward me. I ran. I made it to the front of the RV and grabbed my phone. I was about to scream for Marcus and Jen when Josh spoke behind me. Lisa. I turned. He was standing in the hallway, his arms at his sides, his head tilted slightly, that same smile. I'm not going to hurt you, he said. I just need to go outside. No. I need to. He reached for the door handle and I didn't stop him. I should have, but I was too scared to move. Josh opened the door and stepped outside. I watched through the window as he walked toward the trees. He didn't look back. I woke Marcus and Jen. I told them what happened, and Marcus grabbed a flashlight. We went outside and called Josh's name, but he didn't answer. We searched the campground for an hour, but we couldn't find him. At dawn, Dale showed up again. I told him everything, and he just nodded like he'd been expecting it. He's not coming back, Dale said. What do you mean? Whatever bit him, it's changing him. By tonight, he won't be Josh anymore. Jen started crying. Marcus demanded to know what Dale was talking about, but Dale just shook his head. I don't know what it is. Nobody does. But it's been in these woods for a long time. We called the police. They came around noon and took our statements. They organized a search party and we spent the rest of the day combing the forest. We found nothing. That night, around 10, Josh came back. He walked into our campsite like nothing had happened. He was dirty and his clothes were torn, but he was smiling. That same empty smile. Hey, he said. The police officer who'd been waiting with us radioed for backup, but before anyone could do anything, Josh looked at me. I'm fine now, he said. I feel better. I didn't believe him. Neither did Dale. That's not him anymore, Dale said quietly. Josh turned to look at Dale and his smile widened. Sure I am. The police took Josh to the hospital in Richfield. They said he was dehydrated and disoriented, but otherwise fine. The bite on his ankle had healed completely. No swelling, no marks. Nothing. They released him the next day. We drove home. Marcus and Jen barely spoke the whole way. Josh sat next to me in the passenger seat, staring out the window. He seemed normal. He talked about getting back to work, about what he wanted to eat when we got home. He even laughed at one of Marcus's jokes. But I knew he wasn't Josh anymore. We've been back for 3 weeks now. Josh went back to work. He sees his friends. He acts like everything is fine. And maybe it is. Maybe I imagined the whole thing. Maybe it was just a bad reaction to a spider bite or a tick or something explainable. But yesterday I woke up in the middle of the night and Josh was standing at the window looking outside. When I asked him what he was doing, he smiled and said, just looking. And last week I found a dead bird in our backyard. Its ribs were pulled apart and the organs were gone. Josh said a cat probably got it. I don't think it was a cat. I'm writing this because I don't know what else to do. I can't prove anything. I can't explain it. But I know something happened in Fish Lake National Forest. Something bit Josh, and whatever came back isn't entirely him anymore. He still looks like Josh. He still sounds like Josh. But sometimes when he thinks I'm not looking, I see that smile. And I know I should leave. I know I should tell someone. But who would believe me? So I'm just writing it down. Maybe someone will read this someday and understand. Maybe they'll know what to do. Because I don't. All I know is that Josh is sleeping next to me right now, and I'm too scared to close my eyes. Story 3. Yes, we found our own campsite. Again. My name is Daniel Harris. I'm writing this from a motel room in Nephi, Utah, 3 days after we left Fish Lake National Forest. My hands still shake when I hold the pen, but I need to get this down before the details start to blur, before I convince myself it didn't happen the way I remember. We went to Fish Lake because my wife Rachel found a deal on an RV rental. 23 feet of sleeping space, kitchenette, the works. She'd been talking about getting away from Phoenix since her mother died in March, and I figured 2 weeks in the forest might help. Our daughter Emma was finishing her sophomore year at ASU and couldn't come, which disappointed Rachel but secretly relieved me. What happened out there? I'm glad Emma wasn't with us. Rachel's brother Michael came instead. He'd been between jobs since his logistics company downsized in February, and Rachel thought the trip might lift his spirits. Michael and I had always gotten along fine. He was quiet, practical, good with his hands. The kind of guy who could fix a carburetor or tie any knot you needed. He'd been married once, briefly, in his 20s, no kids. He lived alone in a studio apartment in Tempe and didn't talk much about his personal life. We picked up the RV on a Tuesday morning, May 14th. The rental place was in Mesa, run by a retired couple who walked us through everything: water tanks, propane, electrical hookups, waste disposal. The husband, whose name I've forgotten, mentioned that Fish Lake was beautiful this time of year but warned us about afternoon thunderstorms. They come up fast in the mountains, he said. Don't take chances if the sky looks wrong. The drive took about 7 hours. Rachel navigated while I handled the RV, which drove like a whale on wheels. Michael sat in back reading a paperback thriller and occasionally pointing out landmarks. We stopped for gas in Richfield, grabbed sandwiches at a Subway, and reached the forest boundary around 5 p.m. Fish Lake National Forest covers over 1 million acres in south-central Utah. We'd reserved a spot at a dispersed camping area near Fish Lake itself, about 20 miles up a dirt road called Forest Route 033. The reservation system was informal. You called a ranger station, gave them your dates, and they marked you down. First come, first served for the actual spots. The road into the forest was rough, washboard gravel that made the RV rattle and groan. Pine trees pressed close on both sides, and the altitude made my ears pop. We passed 2 other campsites before reaching ours, a clearing about 40 yards across with a fire ring made of blackened stones and a weathered picnic table. Trees surrounded us on 3 sides. The 4th side opened onto a slope that dropped toward the lake, visible through the branches as a gray sheet of water. Perfect, Rachel said, climbing out to stretch. She wore jeans and a flannel shirt, her dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked younger than 43 in that light, the way she had when we first met. Michael helped me level the RV using blocks we'd brought. We hooked up the water and checked the propane. Everything worked. By the time we finished, the sun was setting behind the ridge, turning the sky orange and purple. We grilled chicken on a portable camp stove and ate at the picnic table. The temperature dropped fast after dark. We could see our breath by 8 o'clock. Rachel built a fire in the ring, and we sat around it in folding chairs, drinking beer and talking about nothing important. Michael told a story about a guy at his old job who'd fallen asleep during a Zoom meeting and started snoring. Rachel laughed hard at that, the first real laugh I'd heard from her in weeks. Around 10, we called it a night. The RV had a queen bed over the cab, which Rachel and I took, and a dinette that converted into a bed for Michael. We turned off the lights and listened to the forest settling. Wind in the pines, an owl somewhere distant, the occasional crack of a branch. I slept well that first night, better than I had in months. The next morning, Michael woke me by banging around in the kitchenette. I checked my phone, 7:23 a.m. No signal. Rachel was already up, standing outside in a fleece jacket, drinking coffee from a thermos. Morning, I said, joining her. The air was cold and clean, sharp in my lungs. Did you hear anything last night? She asked. Like what? I don't know. Footsteps maybe. Around the RV. I hadn't heard anything, and I told her so. She frowned into her coffee but didn't push it. Michael emerged with a mug and a granola bar. What's the plan? We decided to hike. There was a trail marked on the map we'd printed, looping around the northern shore of Fish Lake and back, about 6 miles total. We packed water, snacks, and a first aid kit, locked the RV, and set off around 9. The trail was easy, mostly flat, winding through stands of aspen and ponderosa pine. The lake appeared and disappeared through the trees, dark and still. We saw 2 other hikers early on, a young couple with a dog, but after that we had the trail to ourselves. Around noon, we stopped for lunch on a rocky outcrop overlooking the water. Rachel had made sandwiches, turkey and Swiss on wheat. We ate in comfortable silence, watching a pair of ducks skim across the lake's surface. This was a good idea, Michael said. Thanks for inviting me. Your family, Rachel said. You don't need an invitation. We got back to the campsite around 3. The RV was exactly as we'd left it. and the fire ring was cold. Rachel started prepping dinner while Michael and I gathered more firewood from the surrounding trees. We found plenty of dead branches, dry and easy to snap. That evening passed much like the first. Dinner, fire, conversation. Michael mentioned that his phone had no signal either, and Rachel joked that it was probably for the best. No emails, no news, no bullshit, she said. But something felt different that night, subtle, hard to articulate. The forest seemed quieter. The owl we'd heard the night before was gone, and I didn't hear any insects or small animals rustling in the underbrush. The silence pressed on my ears like cotton. Around 11, Rachel and I went to bed. Michael stayed up a while longer, reading by flashlight. I heard him moving around for another 20 minutes before the RV went still. I woke sometime later, no idea what time, to Rachel shaking my shoulder. "Dan," she whispered, "do you smell that?" I did. Smoke. Not campfire smoke either. Something chemical. Acrid. Wrong. I climbed down from the bed and looked out the window. Nothing. The fire ring was dark, no embers glowing. I opened the door and stepped outside in my boxers and a t-shirt. The smell was stronger out there, drifting through the trees from somewhere upwind. I walked a few yards toward the forest edge, trying to pinpoint the source. That's when I noticed the picnic table. It wasn't where we'd left it. We'd been sitting at the table earlier on the side facing the RV. Now it was turned 90 degrees facing the woods. I stared at it for a long moment, trying to rationalize. Maybe the wind? But there was no wind. The air was perfectly still. I walked over and touched the table. It was solid, heavy, weathered wood, not something that moved easily. "Dan?" Rachel's voice came from the RV doorway. "Yeah, I'm here." "What is it?" "Nothing," I lied. "Go back to bed." But I stood there for another 5 minutes, staring at the table and smelling that chemical smoke, which eventually faded to nothing. The next morning, I didn't mention the table. I told myself I'd misremembered its position. Rachel seemed fine, cheerful even, making pancakes on the camp stove. Michael was in a good mood too, talking about maybe driving into town later to pick up more supplies. We spent the day around the campsite. Rachel read a book in the sun. Michael and I played cards at the picnic table, now back in its original position, which I didn't question. The weather was perfect, mid-70s, with a light breeze, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. It started around lunchtime. I'd look up from my cards and scan the tree line, expecting to see someone standing there. I never did, but the feeling persisted. Eyes on the back of my neck, a prickling awareness. Michael noticed. "You okay?" "Fine," I said. "Just thought I saw something." "Like what?" "I don't know. A deer, maybe." He studied me for a moment, then shrugged and played his next card. That afternoon, Rachel went for a walk by herself. She wanted some alone time, she said, and would be back in an hour. Michael and I stayed at the campsite, dozing in our chairs. I woke to Michael standing by the fire ring, staring at something on the ground. "What is it?" I asked. "Come look at this." I walked over. In the dirt beside the ring, someone had drawn a symbol, a circle with 3 lines radiating from its center like a simplified sun. The lines were deep, carved with a stick or finger. "Was that there before?" Michael asked. "I don't think so." "Who would do that?" "Kids, maybe, or another camper." But we hadn't seen anyone else since arriving. Michael scuffed the symbol out with his boot, and we didn't talk about it again. Rachel came back an hour later, smiling and relaxed. She said the walk had done her good, that she'd followed a deer trail down to the lake and watched the water for a while. She seemed lighter, happier, and I decided not to burden her with weird details about symbols in the dirt. We had a quiet dinner, canned chili and cornbread. The fire burned low and steady. Michael told another work story, and Rachel laughed. And for a while, everything felt normal. Then the sun went down, and the forest swallowed us. That night, I couldn't sleep. Rachel was out cold beside me, breathing deeply, but my mind wouldn't settle. I kept thinking about the table, the symbol, the smell of smoke, pieces that didn't fit together. Around 2 a.m., I heard Michael get up. I heard the bathroom door close, water running, the door opening again, then silence. I lay there staring at the ceiling until I heard Michael's voice. "Dan." I climbed down and found him standing at the window, looking out. "What's wrong?" I asked. "Do you see that?" I looked where he was pointing. At first I saw nothing. Then I noticed a faint glow through the trees, maybe 50 yards away. Orange and flickering, like a campfire. "Someone else is out there," I said. "We're the only ones registered for this area." "Maybe they didn't register." Michael grabbed a flashlight and opened the door. "I'm going to check." "Wait." But he was already outside, walking toward the light. I pulled on my boots and followed. The forest was pitch black beyond our flashlight beams. The glow ahead stayed constant, not moving, not growing. We walked for what felt like 5 minutes, weaving between trees, until Michael stopped. "Where is it?" he asked. The glow was gone. I turned in a circle, shining my light through the trees. Nothing. "It was right here," Michael said. "Maybe we got turned around." We walked a bit farther, then decided to head back. But when we turned around, I couldn't see the RV. "Which way?" Michael asked. I pointed what I thought was the right direction. We walked for another minute, then 2. No RV, no clearing, just trees and darkness. "This doesn't make sense," I said. "We didn't come that far." Michael checked his phone. No signal, no GPS. I checked mine. Same. We kept walking, calling out to Rachel, hoping she'd hear us. The forest stayed silent. No wind, no animals, nothing. Then I saw the clearing. We both stopped at the edge of the trees, staring. It was our campsite, the RV, the fire ring, the picnic table, everything exactly as we'd left it, except for one detail that made my stomach drop. The RV was burned, not actively burning, no flames, no smoke, but the entire exterior was blackened, the windows shattered, the tires melted, the door hung open, twisted on its hinges. "What the hell?" Michael whispered. I walked closer, my flashlight shaking in my hand. The picnic table was charred. The fire ring was full of ash and twisted metal, remains of something I couldn't identify. "Rachel," I said, and broke into a run. The inside of the RV was worse. Everything was scorched, melted, unrecognizable. The beds were gone, just frames and springs. The kitchenette was a blackened shell. No Rachel. I turned to Michael, who stood in the doorway, his face pale. "She's not here," I said. "This isn't real," he said. We're dreaming or something." But it wasn't a dream. I could feel the heat still radiating from the metal, smell the burnt plastic and rubber. I climbed out of the RV and called Rachel's name again, louder this time, my voice cracking. No response. Michael and I searched the clearing, then the surrounding trees. We found nothing. No sign of Rachel, no footprints, no blood. We kept searching until the sky started to lighten. Around 5 a.m., exhausted and terrified, we sat at the charred picnic table and tried to think. "We need to get help," I said. "Find a ranger, call the police." "With what phone?" "We walk out, follow the road." Michael nodded. We gathered what we could. Nothing, really. Everything was destroyed, and started walking. The dirt road we'd driven in on was easy to find. We followed it downhill back toward the main highway. My legs ached, and my throat was raw from calling Rachel's name. We walked for 2 hours, then the road brought us to a clearing, our clearing. The RV sat there intact and undamaged. The picnic table was in its usual spot. The fire ring was cold but not destroyed. "No," Michael said. "No, no, no." I walked to the RV and opened the door. Inside, everything was normal. Rachel was asleep in the bed, her face peaceful. I touched her shoulder and she woke up. "Dan?" She blinked at me. "What's wrong? What time is it?" I couldn't answer. I sat down on the floor and put my head in my hands. Rachel made coffee. Michael and I sat at the picnic table, not speaking. She asked what happened, why we looked like we'd seen a ghost. I told her we went for a walk and got lost, which was true in its own way. She seemed to accept that and didn't push for details. That day passed in a haze. I couldn't focus on anything. Michael was the same, distant and pale. Rachel noticed but chalked it up to us being tired. In the afternoon, she suggested we leave early. "I think we've had enough nature," she said, smiling. "Let's head home, get a hotel for the night, regroup." I agreed immediately. So did Michael. We packed up the RV in under an hour. I drove, following the dirt road back toward the highway. Rachel navigated, watching the map on her phone, which suddenly had service again. "This road seems longer than I remember," she said after a while. It did. We'd been driving for almost 30 minutes, and the forest showed no signs of thinning. Then we came to the clearing. I stopped the RV and stared. Our campsite. The fire ring, the picnic table. "That's impossible," Rachel said. "We've been driving straight." I put the RV in reverse and backed up, then turned around and drove the opposite direction. 10 minutes later, we arrived at the same clearing. "This is wrong," Michael said from the back. "This is fucking wrong." Rachel's face had gone white. "What's happening?" I didn't answer. I turned the RV around again and drove, faster this time, not caring about the rough road. The forest blurred past. My hands ached from gripping the wheel, and then we were back. Same clearing, same fire ring, same table. I turned off the engine and sat there, breathing hard. "We're stuck," Michael said. Rachel started crying. We tried 4 more times, different speeds, different directions. Every time we ended up back at the clearing. On the 6th attempt, Rachel noticed something. "Stop," she said. "Look at the fire ring." I looked. There was something inside it, half buried in the ash. I got out and walked over. It was a boot, charred and twisted but recognizable, Michael's boot. I looked down at his feet. He was wearing the same boots, intact and clean. "This is a loop," Michael said quietly. "We're in some kind of loop." "That doesn't make sense," Rachel said. "None of this makes sense." I picked up the boot and turned it over. The sole was melted, but I could still see the tread pattern. "We've been here before," I said. "Not just now, before." Rachel looked at me like I'd lost my mind. Maybe I had. That night, or what I thought was night, time had stopped meaning much. We stayed in the RV with the doors locked. Rachel wouldn't stop crying. Michael sat in the dinette staring at nothing. I tried to think logically. Loops in movies ended when characters broke the pattern or learned some lesson, but this wasn't a movie. This was real, and I couldn't see a pattern to break or a lesson to learn. Around midnight, I heard footsteps outside. I looked through the window and saw someone standing by the fire ring. Rachel, not the Rachel crying in the bed behind me. Another Rachel, wearing the same flannel shirt and jeans, staring at the RV. I blinked, and she was gone. The next morning, or whatever morning it was, Michael was gone too. I woke to find Rachel shaking me, saying his name. The dinette bed was empty, the blankets pushed aside. We searched the clearing, calling for him. No response. Then I saw the picnic table. Michael was sitting there, facing the woods. His back was to us, his shoulders hunched. "Michael," Rachel called. He didn't move. We walked closer. Rachel reached out and touched his shoulder. He turned around. His face was wrong, not disfigured, not bloody, just wrong in a way I can't explain. His eyes were too wide. His mouth stretched in a smile that didn't reach the rest of his features. "I figured it out," he said. "Figured what out?" I asked. "We're not stuck," he said. "We're home." Rachel backed away. "Michael, you're scaring me." He stood up, still smiling. "Don't you see? This is where we belong. This is where we've always belonged." "Michael, the fire was just the beginning," he said. "We burned, and we came back, and we'll burn again. Over and over. That's the pattern." He started walking toward the RV. I grabbed Rachel and pulled her back. "Get in the truck." "What truck?" I looked around. The RV was the only vehicle. Of course it was. Michael kept walking, that smile fixed on his face. "Don't fight it, Dan. Don't fight it." I shoved Rachel toward the trees. "Run!" We ran. The forest was the same in every direction. Trees, shadows, silence. We ran until we couldn't anymore, then walked, then stumbled. Rachel kept asking where we were going, and I didn't have an answer. Eventually, we came to a clearing. Our clearing. The RV sat there, doors open. The picnic table was empty. The fire ring was cold. "No," Rachel whispered. I heard an engine, the RV's engine. It was running, exhaust puffing from the tailpipe. The driver's side door opened, and I stepped out. Not me, another me. Same clothes, same face. He looked at us and smiled. "Took you long enough," he said. Rachel screamed. The other me walked toward us, and I saw that he was holding something, a gas can. "It's time," he said. I grabbed Rachel and pulled her back, but she tripped and fell. The other me poured gasoline in a circle around the RV, around the clearing, around us. "This is where we stay," he said. "This is where we've always stayed." He struck a match. I don't remember the fire. I remember heat and pain and Rachel screaming. I remember the smell of burning hair and melting plastic. I remember Michael standing at the edge of the clearing, watching, still smiling. And then I woke up. We were in the RV. The sun was shining through the windows. Rachel was making coffee. Michael was reading his book. "Morning," Rachel said cheerfully. "Sleep okay?" I looked at my hands. No burns, no scars. "Dan?" she asked. "Fine," I managed. I slept fine. That day, we tried to leave again. Same result. Same clearing. We've been here 6 days now. Or 6 loops. I've lost count. Rachel doesn't seem to notice anymore. She makes breakfast, goes for walks, sits by the fire. She's happy, she says. Peaceful. Michael doesn't talk much. He just sits at the picnic table, staring at the trees. Sometimes I see other versions of us moving through the forest, burning, running, screaming. Sometimes I see the clearing from above like I'm floating, and I can see how many RVs are parked here, all in the same spot, all occupied by us. I don't know if I'm still alive. I don't know if we ever left Phoenix. I don't know if any of this is real. But I know we can't leave. And I know the fire is coming again. Soon. I'm writing this on a scrap of paper I found in the RV's glove box. I'm going to leave it here, in the compartment under the dinette, where maybe someone will find it. If you're reading this, turn around. Leave Fish Lake. Don't camp on Forest Route 033. Don't look for us. We're already gone. My name is Daniel Harris, and we found our own campsite again. Story 4. The Footage. My name is Derek Walsh, and I need to tell someone what happened at Fish Lake National Forest last September. I've watched the video maybe 200 times now. My therapist says I should delete it, but I can't, because if I delete it, then I'm the only one who knows what was really there. And that's worse than having proof no one believes. My girlfriend Maya and I had been planning the trip for months. She'd bought this massive RV off Craigslist, a 1987 Winnebago Chieftain that smelled like cigarettes and had a toilet that didn't quite work right, but it was ours, and Maya was proud of it. She'd spent 3 weekends getting it road ready, replacing hoses and checking the propane lines while I mostly handed her tools and tried not to look useless. We left Portland on a Thursday morning in early September. Maya drove the whole way because I'd never gotten comfortable behind the wheel of something that size. She had this playlist she'd made specifically for the trip, a lot of indie folk stuff that I pretended to like more than I did. We stopped in Twin Falls for gas and cheap burgers, then pushed on toward Utah as the sun dropped behind us. Fish Lake was Maya's choice. She'd done some research and found that the campground there was less crowded than the national parks, but still had good hiking and this famous grove of aspen trees called Pando, supposedly the largest living organism on Earth, all connected by one root system. Maya liked that kind of thing. She was studying environmental science at Portland State and could talk for an hour about mycorrhizal networks or whatever. I worked IT support for a medical billing company, so my contributions to these conversations were limited. We arrived at the campground around 7 p.m. on Friday. The RV sites were spread out pretty well, separated by trees and these low wooden fences. We got spot 17, which backed up against the forest. The ranger who checked us in was this older woman with gray hair pulled back in a braid. She gave us a map and a printout about bear safety, then told us to have a nice stay. Normal stuff. Maya backed the RV into the spot while I guided her, making those useless hand signals that probably meant nothing. We leveled it, hooked up the electricity, and opened a couple of beers. The aspen trees around us were just starting to turn yellow. It was quiet except for some kids yelling at another campsite down the way. "This is perfect," Maya said. She was sitting in one of those collapsible camping chairs we'd brought, her feet up on the RV's bumper. "We should do this more often." "Yeah," I said, though I was already thinking about how much I missed my apartment's Wi-Fi and the Thai place down the street from us. That first night was fine. We made spaghetti on the RV's tiny stove and ate outside while the sun set. Afterward, we walked around the campground a bit. There were maybe a dozen other RVs and a few tent sites. We passed a family roasting marshmallows, a couple guys in their 20s drinking around a fire, and an older man sitting alone outside a small trailer, reading by lantern light. Maya wanted to take photos. She'd brought her nice camera, the DSLR her parents had bought her for graduation. She was always taking pictures, of trees, of the sky, of me when I wasn't paying attention. I'd gotten used to it. "Stand over there," she said, pointing to a spot near our RV. "The light's good." I stood where she told me, trying not to look as awkward as I felt. Maya took a few shots, checking the display after each one. "Perfect," she said. "We'll look at them later." We went to bed around 11. The RV's bed was small and the mattress was thin, but Maya fell asleep almost immediately. I lay awake for a while, listening to the wind in the aspens and the occasional car passing on the main road. Eventually, I drifted off. Saturday morning, Maya was up before me, already dressed and drinking instant coffee from the RV's tiny kitchen. "We're hiking to the Pando Grove," she announced. "It's only about 2 miles. The hike was easy, mostly flat. Maya stopped every 50 feet to take pictures of mushrooms or interesting bark patterns. I just followed along, trying to appreciate it the way she did. The Pando Grove itself was impressive, I guess. Thousands of aspen trees, all genetically identical, their white trunks stretching in every direction. Maya spent 20 minutes there, photographing different angles while I sat on a fallen log and checked my phone. No signal, obviously. We got back to the campground around 1 p.m. The family with kids was packing up. The 2 guys we'd seen the night before were playing cornhole outside their RV, music drifting from a Bluetooth speaker. We waved. They waved back. Maya wanted to go into town for supplies. There was a small grocery store about 15 miles away. We took her car, leaving the RV behind. The store was the kind of place that sold tourist t-shirts alongside canned goods and had a taxidermied elk head mounted on the wall. We bought hot dogs and buns, more beer, and a bag of firewood that cost $12. Back at camp, we spent the afternoon doing nothing much. Maya read a book in her chair. I tried to read a novel I'd brought, but mostly just looked at my phone, even though there was nothing new on it. Around 5, we started the fire and cooked the hot dogs. They came out burned on one side and cold in the middle, the way they always do. That's when Maya set up the tripod. "Let's get a picture of both of us," she said. "We never have any photos together." She was right about that. Maya was always behind the camera, so our relationship was documented entirely from her perspective. I barely had any pictures of her on my phone. She set the camera on the tripod, fiddled with the settings, and positioned it to face our chairs by the fire. We sat down and she pressed the timer button, then hurried back. The camera clicked off a series of shots. "Let's do a video too," she said. "Just a little one. We can show people back home." She switched the camera to video mode and started it recording. Then she sat back down next to me. "Say hi," she told me. "Hi," I said to the camera. Maya laughed. "So we're at Fish Lake National Forest," she said, looking into the lens. "It's beautiful here. The aspens are changing. Derek's been a good sport, even though I know he'd rather be home playing video games." "That's not true," I said, even though it kind of was. "We're going to do the Mirror Lake Trail tomorrow," Maya continued. "It's supposed to be really pretty, and tonight we're just relaxing. This is the life, right?" She looked at me and smiled. I smiled back. The camera kept recording. We talked for maybe 2 more minutes. Normal stuff. What we'd seen on the hike, how good the hot dogs were, whether we should come back next year. Then Maya got up and stopped the recording. "Perfect," she said. "I'll edit it when we get home." We spent the rest of the evening by the fire. The 2 guys from the nearby RV came over around 9 and introduced themselves. Tyler and Josh, both from Salt Lake City, up for the weekend. They seemed fine. We shared some beers and Tyler told a long story about the time he'd seen a moose attack someone's tent at Yellowstone. Eventually they headed back to their site and Maya and I went to bed. Sunday morning, our last full day. Maya wanted to do the Mirror Lake Trail like she'd mentioned in the video. It was a longer hike, about 5 miles, but she promised the views were worth it. We started around 8. The trail was rockier than the Pando hike, winding uphill through pine and aspen. My legs were sore from the day before, but I didn't complain. Maya was in a good mood, pointing out birds and taking more photos. We passed a few other hikers going the opposite direction. Mirror Lake itself was, well, it was a lake, very still, very clear, reflecting the mountains. Maya spent half an hour there, camera clicking away. I skipped rocks and tried to enjoy the quiet. On the way back, Maya wanted to take a different trail that looped past some old mining ruins. The ranger had mentioned them when we checked in. We followed the signs and eventually found the site. Just some collapsed wooden structures and rusty equipment scattered around. Not much to see, really, but Maya took photos anyway. "These are great," she said, reviewing the images on her camera's display. "So atmospheric." We got back to the campground around 3. Both of us were tired and sweaty. Maya suggested we just hang around the RV for the rest of the day, maybe watch something on her laptop. We still had a few beers left and some chips. But first she wanted to upload the photos from the weekend to her computer so she could start sorting through them. She connected the camera to her laptop and imported everything. Then she opened the photo viewer and started clicking through them. The ones from Friday night, the Pando Grove, Mirror Lake, the mining ruins, all normal. Then she got to the photos from Saturday evening, the ones she'd taken of both of us by the fire. "These turned out nice," she said. I leaned over to look at the laptop screen. The photos were fine. Good, even. The firelight gave everything a warm glow. Maya looked happy. I looked less awkward than usual. But then Maya clicked to the next photo and stopped. "Huh," she said. "What?" I think there's someone in this one." She zoomed in on the image. Behind us, back near the tree line, there was a figure, partially obscured by an aspen trunk, but definitely there. A person, standing motionless, facing toward the camera. "Must be someone from another campsite," I said. "Maybe." Maya clicked to the next photo. The figure was still there, in almost the same position. Then the next photo. Still there. "Weird that they're just standing there," Maya said. She opened the video file next, the one of us talking by the fire. We watched ourselves on screen, Maya's voice explaining where we were, my awkward greeting, us discussing the hot dogs and the hike we'd planned for the next day, all of it exactly as I remembered. Maya paused the video. "There," she said, pointing to the screen. In the background, barely visible in the evening gloom, the same figure from the photos, standing at the edge of the trees, watching us. "Someone was just there the whole time?" I said. Maya scrubbed through the video. The figure didn't move. Didn't come closer or walk away. Just stood there, partially hidden by the aspen trunk facing toward us. That's so creepy, Maya said. Why wouldn't they say something? Why just stand there? Maybe they didn't realize they were in frame, I suggested. Maya zoomed in on the video. The figure was too far away, and the light too low to make out any real details. Just a vague human shape in dark clothing. I don't like this, Maya said quietly. We watched the rest of the video. The figure stayed there the entire time. When we got up to stop recording, you could see us walk toward the camera. The figure was still visible behind us, unmoving. Did you see anyone while we were filming? Maya asked. I thought back. I'd been focused on the camera, on trying not to look stupid on video. I hadn't been paying attention to what was behind us. No, I said. I didn't see anyone. Maya closed her laptop. Let's forget about it. It was probably someone from another site cutting through. They didn't want to interrupt, but she didn't sound convinced, and neither was I. That evening, neither of us felt much like sitting outside. We stayed in the RV, eating granola bars and watching a movie on Maya's laptop with the door locked. The campground was quiet. Tyler and Josh were gone. We'd seen them pack up and leave earlier in the afternoon. The older man with the trailer was still there, but we didn't see him. Around 10, Maya wanted to brush her teeth. The campground bathrooms were about 100 yards away, closer to the entrance. She asked me to come with her. You don't want to go alone? I asked. No, I don't. So we walked to the bathrooms together. The campground was dark except for a few scattered lights from other RVs. The bathrooms were empty, fluorescent bright and smelling of industrial cleaner. Maya brushed her teeth while I waited outside, then we walked back. As we approached our spot, Maya grabbed my arm. Derek, she whispered. Someone was standing near our RV, a dark figure barely visible in the shadows between our site and the next one, standing motionless facing toward us. My heart kicked into overdrive. Hey, I called out. Can we help you? The figure didn't respond, didn't move. Hello? Maya tried, her voice shaking slightly. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the figure turned and walked away, disappearing into the darkness between the trees. What the fuck? Maya said. We hurried into the RV and locked the door. Maya pulled all the curtains closed. We sat there in the dark, listening. I heard wind in the aspens, an owl somewhere. Normal sounds. Should we call someone? Maya asked. And say what? Someone was standing near our RV? They were watching us, Derek. That's not normal. I know, but I didn't know how to finish that sentence. What would we tell the ranger? That someone was near our campsite? That we had a bad feeling? We didn't sleep much that night. Maya dozed off around 2 a.m., but I stayed awake, listening for footsteps outside. I heard nothing but wind and the occasional settling creak of the RV. Monday morning, checkout was at 11. We were both exhausted and on edge. Maya wanted to leave early. Let's just pack up and go, she said. I don't care about breakfast or anything. I just want to leave. I didn't argue. We threw everything into the back of the RV without bothering to organize it properly. Maya disconnected the power and I helped her level the vehicle for driving. The whole time I kept looking over my shoulder at the tree line. We were packed and ready to go by 9. Maya was behind the wheel, key in the ignition, when I remembered. The tripod, I said. You left it outside yesterday. Fuck, Maya said. Where? By the fire pit, I think. We both got out and walked around to where we'd had the fire. The tripod was there, lying on its side in the grass. Maya picked it up and checked it over. It's fine, she said. That's when I saw the other campsite. The one directly behind ours, on the other side of the low wooden fence, the one that had been empty all weekend. Someone had set up there, a small tent, dark green, half hidden under the aspens. No car, no other gear visible, just the tent. Maya, I said. She followed my gaze. That wasn't there before. No, I agreed. We stood there staring at the tent. The campground was quiet, no one else around. Should we? Maya started but didn't finish. The tent's flap was closed. There was no way to tell if anyone was inside without getting closer, and neither of us wanted to do that. Let's just go, I said. We got back in the RV. Maya started the engine and we drove out of Fish Lake National Forest without stopping at the ranger station or saying goodbye to anyone. The drive back to Portland was tense. Maya kept checking the rearview mirrors, though I don't know what she expected to see. We didn't talk much. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that dark figure in the video, standing at the edge of the trees, watching. When we got home, Maya uploaded the video and photos to her computer and backed them up to the cloud. We spent an entire evening going through them frame by frame. The figure appeared in 7 photos total, always in the same general position, always partially obscured by the aspen trunk. In the video, they were there for the full 2 minutes and 37 seconds, never moving, never coming closer or turning away, just standing there. Maya zoomed in as much as she could without the image getting too pixelated. At maximum zoom, you could make out some details. Dark clothing, possibly a jacket. What might have been pale hands, though it was hard to tell. And the face, that's the part that still gets me. Because at that level of zoom, with the low light and the distance, you couldn't really make out features. But there was something about the face, something wrong about the proportions or the angles. Maya thought it looked too long, stretched vertically. I thought the eyes seemed too far apart, but I also knew that could just be the way the shadows fell. "We should show this to someone," Maya said. "The police or something." "And tell them what? That someone was standing in the woods at a public campground? They were stalking us, Derek. They followed us. They were watching us." "We don't know that. We don't know anything." But I wasn't sure I believed that anymore. Maya posted the video online. Not the whole thing, just a short clip showing the figure in the background. She put it on Reddit first, then Twitter, asking if anyone could identify what we'd filmed. The responses came fast. Most people said it was fake, that we'd staged it for views. Some thought it was another camper who happened to walk into frame. A few people got excited and started talking about cryptids or paranormal activity. Someone claimed it looked like a person in a ghillie suit. Someone else said they'd seen something similar at a different campground in Montana. One comment stood out. A user named ThruHiker89 wrote, "That's not a person. Look at how still it is. People don't stand that still. And look at how the shadows fall on it. They're wrong." Maya asked them what they meant about the shadows. ThruHiker89 never responded. After a few days, the video got taken down from most places for violating content policies, though Maya and I weren't sure which policies. She kept it on her personal storage and I kept a copy on my phone. We tried to move on, went back to our routines. Maya finished the semester. I kept going to work, helping people reset their passwords and explaining why they couldn't open suspicious email attachments. We didn't talk about the camping trip much after those first few weeks. But Maya started having trouble sleeping. She'd wake up in the middle of the night and check the locks on our apartment door. Started closing the curtains before dark. Stopped going for her usual evening runs. "I keep thinking about it," she told me one night in October. "That figure, just standing there. What if they were there longer than we filmed? What if they'd been watching us the whole time?" "They weren't," I said, trying to sound certain. "It was just a weird coincidence. Then why do I feel like they followed us home?" I didn't have an answer for that. In November, Maya was reviewing some of the other photos from the trip, the ones from the Pando Grove and Mirror Lake. She called me over to her laptop. "Derek, look at this." She'd opened a photo from the Pando hike, the one she'd taken of me sitting on a log while she photographed the aspen trees. I remembered that moment. I'd been bored, waiting for her to finish. Maya zoomed in on the background, past the aspens, into the deeper parts of the grove. There was something there, another figure, far in the distance, mostly hidden by the trees, same dark clothing, same unnatural stillness. "No," I said, that's just a tree trunk or a shadow or something." Maya didn't say anything. She clicked to the next photo from that sequence. The figure was still there. She cycled through 8 more photos. In every single one, the figure was visible somewhere in the background, sometimes closer, sometimes farther away, but always there. "They were following us during the hike," Maya said quietly. "They were there the whole time." She checked the photos from Mirror Lake. At first I didn't see anything, but Maya zoomed in on the tree line across the water. There. Same figure, same position, watching from the distance. The photos from the mining ruins. In 3 of them, if you zoomed in on one particular collapsed structure, you could see someone standing in the shadows inside, watching. Maya started going through every single photo from the trip, hundreds of them. In 73 photos, the figure appeared, always in the background, always watching. In some, they were barely visible, just a dark smudge that could have been anything. In others, they were clear enough to be unmistakable. "How did we not see them?" Maya asked. "How were they in so many places without us noticing?" I had no answer. I remembered those hikes. I remembered looking around, being aware of our surroundings. Neither of us had seen anyone following us, but the photos didn't lie. That night, Maya couldn't sleep at all. She lay in bed next to me, staring at the ceiling, and I could hear her breathing getting faster and faster until she was almost hyperventilating. "They're going to come here," she whispered. aren't they? They know where we live. They followed us home. No one followed us, I said, but I was lying and we both knew it because I'd started noticing things too. Small things. The feeling of being watched when I walked to my car in the morning. The sense that someone had been in our apartment while we were out, even though nothing was disturbed and the locks hadn't been tampered with. The way I'd sometimes catch movement in my peripheral vision, but when I turned to look, nothing was there. Maya stopped going to classes. She barely left the apartment. I'd come home from work and find her sitting in the dark with her laptop, going through the photos over and over, zooming in on the figure, trying to make out details that weren't there. I think I know who it is, she said one evening in December. What? I've been doing research. On the campground, on the forest, on reported incidents in that area. She pulled up a document on her laptop covered in notes and links. In 1986, a woman disappeared from that same campground. Sarah Kingsley, age 32. She was there with her husband. They had an RV, spot 14. One morning, she walked to the bathroom and never came back. They never found her body. Maya, and that's not all. In 1993, a teenage boy went missing during a family camping trip. Different campground, but also in Fish Lake. Never found. In 2004, a couple in their 20s. Their tent was found empty. No signs of struggle, all their belongings still there. Never found. In 2011, stop, I said. Just stop. Don't you see? Whatever was watching us, it's been there for decades, taking people. And now it knows about us. You need to talk to someone, Maya. A therapist or something. This isn't healthy. She looked at me and her eyes were exhausted. You think I'm crazy? I think you're stressed. I think we had a weird experience and now you're connecting dots that aren't there. She closed her laptop. Then explain the photos, Derek. Explain how that figure was there during the entire trip without us seeing them once. I couldn't explain it. I still can't. Maya moved out 3 weeks later, said she needed space, needed to be alone. She went to stay with her parents in Eugene. She left most of her things, including her camera and laptop. Told me she'd come back for them eventually. That was in January. It's March now. I haven't heard from her since February, when she sent me a text that said, I was right. They did follow us. I tried calling her back immediately, but she didn't answer. Her parents say they haven't seen her. She's not at their house. Her phone goes straight to voicemail. I filed a missing persons report, but the police don't seem very concerned. She's an adult, they say. She left voluntarily. There's no sign of foul play. These things happen. I still have the video file on my phone. I've watched it so many times that I've memorized every frame. Maya talking about the aspens changing color, me sitting there trying not to look uncomfortable. The fire flickering. And in the background, that figure, standing at the edge of the trees. Last week, I zoomed in on the figure's face at maximum resolution. I'd done this before, but this time I looked at it for a long time, really studied it. And I realized what was wrong with the proportions, why the face looked so strange. It wasn't the distance, or the shadows, or the low light. The face was smiling, a wide, impossible smile that stretched too far across the face, the kind of smile no human being can make. And now I can't stop thinking about what Maya said, that they followed us home. Because sometimes late at night I'll hear something outside my apartment door. Footsteps that stop right outside and don't continue. I'll look through the peephole and see nothing, but I can feel something there, waiting. I still have Maya's camera. Last night, I don't know why, I turned it on and checked the memory card. There were files on it dated from last week, after she left, after she disappeared. I haven't opened them yet. I'm not sure I want to, because I know what I'm going to see. I know who's going to be in those photos, standing in the background, standing still, watching, smiling. But I think I have to look eventually, because if Maya took these photos, that means she's still out there somewhere. And maybe, if I look hard enough at what's in the background of those images, I'll understand where she went. Or maybe I'll see something I can't unsee, something that will confirm what I already suspect deep down, that whatever was in Fish Lake National Forest wasn't just watching us, it was choosing us. And now it's here. I'm writing this because I think I might be next. I haven't told anyone else. Who would believe me? But I need someone to know what happened, just in case. The video's backed up on my cloud storage. The photos are there too. My password is saved in a file on my desktop. If you're reading this, if someone finds this after I'm gone, do me one favor. Don't watch the video. Don't look at the photos, because if you see what's in them, really see it, then it knows about you too. And once it knows, it never stops watching. It never stops smiling. And eventually, you'll disappear just like the rest of us. My name is Derek Walsh. This happened to me in September at Fish Lake National Forest. And I think it's happening to me still. Story 5. The Toy. My name is Noah Reed. What happened at Fish Lake National Forest in October 2023 still doesn't make sense to me. I've tried to explain it to therapists, to police, to anyone who will listen, but the words always come out wrong. So I'm writing it down exactly as it happened without trying to make it sound better or worse than it was. I went with my girlfriend Madison and our friends Jake and his wife Kara. We'd been planning the trip for months, a long weekend camping in southern Utah before winter set in. Madison and I had just bought a used RV, one of those 30-foot Class A models that someone's grandfather probably drove to Yellowstone in the 90s. It needed work, but it ran fine and we were excited to take it out. Jake and Kara had their own setup, a newer fifth wheel they'd bought the year before. The plan was to find a dispersed camping spot in Fish Lake away from the established campgrounds. Jake had scouted locations on Google Maps and found a clearing about 2 miles off the main forest road that looked perfect. We left Salt Lake City on a Thursday morning. Madison took the day off from her nursing job and I'd wrapped up a project for the software company I work for remotely. The drive down was uneventful. We stopped in Richfield for lunch and supplies, then headed into the forest around 3 in the afternoon. The clearing Jake had found was better than we'd hoped. Flat ground, a fire ring someone had made from rocks, and enough space for both RVs without feeling cramped. Cell service was spotty but present. We spent the first hour getting set up, leveling the RVs, hooking up propane, arranging our camp chairs around the fire ring. Madison was in a good mood. She'd been stressed about work for weeks, dealing with understaffing and long shifts. This was the first time in a while I'd seen her really relaxed. She kept laughing at Jake's stupid jokes while we gathered firewood from the surrounding aspens. Kara made chili for dinner. We ate outside as the sun went down, drinking beer and talking about nothing important. The temperature dropped fast once darkness came, but the fire kept us warm enough. Around 9, we called it a night. Madison and I climbed into our RV, and Jake and Kara went to theirs. The bed in our RV was positioned over the cab, accessible by a small ladder. It was cozy up there with a skylight that let us see the stars. Madison fell asleep quickly. I stayed awake longer, reading on my phone until the battery got low. I woke up around 6 the next morning. Madison was still asleep. I climbed down the ladder carefully, trying not to wake her, and stepped outside to start the fire and make coffee. That's when I saw it. Sitting on one of the camp chairs near the fire ring was a stuffed rabbit. Not a realistic one. It was clearly a toy, the kind you'd win at a carnival. Faded pink fabric, one eye missing, the other a black button. Its ears drooped to either side of its head. I stood there looking at it for maybe 30 seconds before my brain really processed what I was seeing. We hadn't brought any stuffed animals. Jake and Kara didn't have kids. There was no reason for this thing to be here. I walked over and picked it up. The fabric felt damp from the morning dew. The stitching along one arm was coming apart, white stuffing visible through the gap. I turned it over, looking for a tag or any identifying marks. Nothing. Jake emerged from his RV a few minutes later, rubbing his eyes. He saw me holding the rabbit. "Where'd that come from?" he asked. "It was just sitting here," I said. He frowned. "Seriously?" "Yeah, on the chair." He came closer and examined it. Weird. Maybe it was here yesterday and we didn't notice. We would have noticed. Could have blown in from somewhere. I looked around at the dense forest surrounding our clearing. From where? He shrugged. "Kids camping nearby?" "We're miles from the nearest campground." "I don't know, man. It's weird, but it's just a stuffed animal." Madison and Kara came out a few minutes later. We showed them the rabbit. Madison found it creepy. She didn't like dolls or stuffed animals, something about their dead eyes. Kara thought it was sad, probably lost by some kid who was heartbroken about it. I threw it in the back of our truck bed. Out of sight felt better than having it sitting around camp. We spent the day hiking. There was a trail about a mile down the forest road that led to a viewpoint overlooking the valley. The aspens were past their peak color, but the landscape was still beautiful. Rolling hills covered in gold and rust, blue mountains in the distance. Madison seemed happy. She held my hand while we walked and took pictures with her phone. Jake and Kara led the way, Kara stopping every few minutes to identify plants or animal tracks. She'd grown up in Montana and knew a lot about wilderness stuff. We got back to camp around 4 and started preparing dinner. Jake had brought steaks he'd been marinating for 2 days. We were setting up the portable grill when Madison screamed. I dropped the bag of charcoal I was holding and ran to where she stood near our RV. She was staring at the ground by the door. The rabbit was back, same position as this morning, sitting upright like it was waiting for us. "What the fuck?" Madison said. Her voice was tight. I'd thrown that thing in the truck bed. I'd watched it land among the camping gear and tarps. There was no way it had gotten out on its own. Jake walked over to look. "Did one of you take it out?" "No," I said. "Then how?" "I don't know." Kara picked it up. The missing eye socket seemed to follow me as she turned it over in her hands. Someone's messing with us, she said. Has to be. We spent the next 20 minutes searching the surrounding area. The forest was quiet except for wind through the aspens. No voices, no sounds of vehicles, no sign of anyone else. Our camp was isolated exactly as we'd wanted it to be. Maybe there's another explanation, Madison said. She was trying to sound reasonable, but I could hear the edge in her voice. Maybe you didn't actually throw it in the truck. Maybe you put it down somewhere and forgot. I threw it in the truck, I said. Are you sure? I wanted to say yes, but doubt had already started creeping in. Had I actually thrown it? I remembered picking it up, walking to the truck, intending to throw it. But had I followed through? The morning felt fuzzy now. Just get rid of it, Madison said. Take it far away this time, like really far. I grabbed the rabbit and walked into the forest. I didn't follow any path, just pushed through the undergrowth for about 10 minutes until I reached a small ravine. I threw the rabbit as hard as I could into the bottom of it, watching it disappear into a tangle of dead branches and leaves. When I got back to camp, Jake had the grill going. We didn't talk about the rabbit. We ate steak and drank more beer and tried to pretend everything was normal. But Madison kept glancing toward the tree line, and Kara was quieter than usual. Around 10, we went to bed. Madison climbed the ladder first. I followed, but before I did, I checked all the chairs, looked in the truck bed, walked a circle around both RVs with my flashlight. Nothing. Come to bed, Madison said. You're being paranoid. Maybe I was. I turned off the flashlight and climbed up. I didn't sleep well. Every sound outside made me tense. Wind through branches, something small moving through the underbrush, the settling creaks of the RV's frame. Madison tossed and turned beside me, which meant she wasn't sleeping well either. Around 3 in the morning, I heard Jake's RV door open, footsteps on the dirt, the sound of someone urinating against a tree, then the door closing again. I must have dozed off eventually because the next thing I knew, dawn light was filtering through the skylight. Madison was already awake, sitting up and staring at the ladder. It's down there, she said. What? The rabbit? It's sitting on the table. I climbed down the ladder. She was right. The rabbit sat in the center of our small dining table, positioned between the salt and pepper shakers, the same faded pink fabric, the same missing eye. My hands were shaking when I picked it up. The fabric was dry this time, no morning dew. It had been inside. How did it get in here? Madison's voice was high and strained. The door was locked. I locked it myself. I checked the door, still locked. The windows were all closed and latched from the inside. Jake and Kara came over when they heard us talking. Kara's face went pale when she saw the rabbit. Okay, Jake said. Okay, this is fucked up. We need to figure out what's going on. Someone is doing this, I said. Someone is watching us and doing this as a prank or what? Madison asked. I didn't have an answer. We spent the morning searching again. This time we expanded our radius, walking a half-mile circle around the camp. We found old fire rings, a few beer cans, a torn plastic bag caught in branches. No people. No other vehicles, no explanation. We should leave, Madison said when we got back. And go where? Jake asked. Back to Salt Lake? Yes, this is too weird. It's just someone screwing with us. If we leave, they win. I don't care about winning, Madison said. This isn't normal. Kara sided with Madison, but Jake was stubborn. He'd taken time off work for this trip, driven all the way down here, and wasn't about to let some prankster ruin it. After an hour of arguing, we agreed to stay one more night. If anything else happened, we'd pack up in the morning. I burned the rabbit in the fire. I held it over the flames with a stick until the fabric caught and the stuffing inside began to melt. The smell was awful, synthetic and chemical. We watched it burn down to nothing, the button eye popping off and rolling into the coals. The afternoon was tense but uneventful. We played cards in the shade of Jake's awning and tried to act normal. Madison barely spoke. She sat close to me, her knee bouncing constantly. A nervous habit I'd learned meant she was anxious. As evening approached, Kara suggested we skip the campfire and just eat inside our respective RVs. No one argued. We heated up leftovers and ate in silence while darkness fell outside. Around 8, Madison and I were washing dishes when we heard screaming from Jake and Kara's RV. We ran outside. Jake was standing in the doorway of his fifth wheel, his face bloodless. It's in here, he said. It's fucking in here. Inside their RV, sitting on the bed in the rear sleeping area, was the rabbit. Same one, same missing eye. But this time there was something wrong with it. It was wet, not damp, soaking wet, water dripping onto the bedspread, and it smelled like standing water, like a pond or a drainage ditch. Kara was crying. We need to leave right now. Right now. I burned it, I said stupidly. I watched it burn. Then this is a different one, Jake said, but his voice lacked conviction. Madison went back to our RV and started packing without a word. Kara joined her. Jake and I stood outside staring at each other. "This doesn't make sense," he said. "I know. Someone would have to be watching us constantly. They'd have to know the exact moment we weren't looking." "I know. And where are they getting these rabbits? How many do they have?" I didn't answer. I was thinking about the water dripping from the fabric, the smell of stagnant pond water. There were no ponds nearby. We were miles from the nearest water source. We decided to leave in the morning. It was too dark to safely navigate the forest road, and neither Madison nor Kara would agree to stay up all night driving. We'd lock ourselves in our RVs, take shifts keeping watch, and leave at first light. I took first watch in our RV. Madison tried to stay awake with me but eventually dozed off around midnight. I sat at the dining table with a flashlight and my pocket knife. Not that I thought a knife would help against whoever or whatever was doing this, but it made me feel slightly better. The forest outside was completely silent. No wind, no animal sounds, nothing. Around 2 in the morning, I heard a soft thump on our RV's roof, like something landing up there, something light. I grabbed the flashlight and went outside. The cold air hit me immediately. My breath fogged in the beam of the flashlight as I swept it across the roof of the RV. Nothing, but when I walked around to the other side, I saw small wet footprints leading from the edge of the roof down the ladder we'd left propped against the vehicle. The prints were small, child-sized, and they glistened in the flashlight beam. They led away from the RV toward the forest. I followed them for maybe 20 feet before they simply stopped. Just ended in the middle of a patch of bare ground. No explanation for where they went. I went back inside and woke Madison. She didn't believe me until I showed her the footprints. They were already starting to fade, absorbed by the dry ground. "We're leaving now," she said. "I don't care how dark it is." I woke Jake and Kara. It took 15 minutes of arguing, but they finally agreed. We started breaking down camp, working by flashlight and headlamp. Madison and Kara worked together to disconnect the water and power hookups while Jake and I collapsed the awnings. That's when Madison shouted. She was standing by our RV's storage compartment. The door hung open. Inside, arranged neatly on top of our camping gear, were 5 rabbits. 5 identical faded pink stuffed rabbits, each missing one eye, each staring out at us with that single black button. Kara started hyperventilating. Jake had to help her sit down and breathe into cupped hands. Madison was frozen, just staring at the rabbits. I was the one who slammed the compartment door shut. "Get in the RVs, we're leaving now." It took another 10 minutes to get everything secured enough to drive. I climbed into the driver's seat of our RV while Madison got in the passenger side. Jake's 5th wheel was already rolling, his truck's taillights visible in my rearview mirror. I started the engine. The headlights illuminated the clearing and the dark wall of aspens beyond. As I began to turn the RV toward the forest road, something moved at the edge of the light. A child was standing there, maybe 6 or 7 years old, wearing a dirty white nightgown. Long dark hair hanging over most of their face. They were holding something against their chest. I slammed on the brakes. Madison grabbed my arm. "Don't stop," she said. "Drive. There's a kid out there." "That's not a kid. Drive." The child took a step forward into the light. I could see what they were holding now. Another pink rabbit, this one pristine, both eyes intact. The child raised their other hand and waved at us. A slow, deliberate wave. Their face was wrong. That's the only way I can describe it. The proportions were off, like a photograph that had been stretched or distorted. The mouth was too wide. The eyes were too far apart. "Drive!" Madison screamed. I pressed the accelerator. The RV lurched forward. As we passed the child, they turned their head to follow our movement. The head kept turning even after we'd passed them, rotating further than any human neck should allow. I focused on the road ahead, following Jake's taillights through the forest. The RV rocked and swayed on the rough dirt track. Madison was crying beside me, her hands pressed against the dashboard. We drove for maybe 5 minutes before Jake's brake lights flared. His truck stopped in the middle of the road. I pulled up behind him and honked, but he didn't move. "Why is he stopping?" Madison asked. I put the RV in park and climbed out. Jake was standing beside his truck, staring ahead down the road. "Jake, what the hell?" "Look," he said. The road ahead was blocked. Stuffed rabbits covered the ground from one side to the other, a carpet of faded pink fabric stretching as far as the headlights reached. There had to be hundreds of them. Thousands. "Back up," Kara called from the truck. "We'll find another way out." But when I turned around, the road behind us was blocked too. More rabbits, appearing as if they'd materialized in the seconds since we'd stopped. "The trees," Jake said. He was pointing at the aspens on either side of the road. "Look at the trees." Children were standing between the trunks, dozens of them, maybe more, all wearing white nightgowns, all holding rabbits, all with those wrong, distorted faces. They were completely silent, just watching us. Madison had gotten out of the RV. She grabbed my hand. Her palm was slick with sweat. "What do they want?" she whispered. As if in answer, the children began to move. Not toward us, they started arranging the rabbits on the road, moving them into patterns, circles within circles, spirals, symbols I didn't recognize. It took them about 10 minutes. The whole time, none of them made a sound. When they finished, they stepped back into the forest and disappeared between the trees. The road ahead was clear. The rabbits that had blocked our path were gone. Only the patterns remained, glowing faintly in the headlights. "Drive around them," Kara said. "Don't touch the patterns." "There's not enough room," Jake said. "The road's too narrow." He was right. We'd have to drive over the patterns to get through. "Then we go back," Madison said. "We turn around and find another route." "The road behind us is blocked too," I reminded her. "Then we wait. We wait until morning and someone will come. Rangers, other campers, someone." But no one was coming. We were miles from anywhere, on a road that barely qualified as a road. Cell service had been spotty at best, and I'd had no signal at all since we'd left camp. "We're going through," Jake said. He climbed back into his truck. "Jake, wait." Kara started, but he'd already started the engine. His truck rolled forward. The tires touched the first pattern of rabbits. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the rabbits began to move. They didn't stand up or walk. They just shifted, sliding across the ground like they were on ice, rearranging themselves into new patterns. The patterns pulsed. I can't think of a better word. They seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting. Jake's truck kept moving. The rabbits parted for his tires but closed in immediately behind. When the truck passed through completely, the patterns reformed, blocking the road again. Now it was our turn. Madison climbed back into the RV. I followed. "Maybe we should," she started. "There's nowhere else to go," I said. I put the RV in gear and drove forward slowly. When the tires touched the first rabbit, I felt a jolt run through the vehicle. Not like hitting something, more like a static shock, but bigger. The dashboard lights flickered. The rabbits began to move around us. They formed spirals that rotated slowly, drawing us forward. I couldn't have stopped if I'd wanted to. The RV was rolling on its own now, pulled by something I couldn't see or understand. Madison gripped my arm hard enough to leave marks. Through the windshield, we watched the rabbits dance and swirl and form patterns that hurt to look at directly. They suggested shapes that couldn't exist, angles that didn't work in normal space. Then we were through. The RV rolled out onto clear road, and the feeling of being pulled released suddenly, like a rubber band snapping. I regained control of the vehicle and accelerated, desperate to put distance between us and those patterns. Jake's truck was ahead, driving fast. I stayed close, afraid to let his taillights out of sight. We drove for 20 minutes before we hit the paved highway. Real pavement, with white lines and reflectors. It felt like returning to civilization, to reality. Jake pulled over at a rest stop, and I parked beside him. We all got out. Kara was shaking so badly she could barely stand. Jake looked like he'd aged 10 years. Madison kept touching her face like she was checking to make sure she was still real. "What the fuck was that?" Jake finally said. "What the actual fuck was that?" None of us had an answer. We drove back to Salt Lake City without stopping except for gas. It was almost noon when we arrived. We went our separate ways without making plans to meet up again. I think we all just wanted to be home, somewhere familiar and safe. Madison and I unpacked the RV in silence. We were almost done when I opened the storage compartment to retrieve the last of our gear. 5 pink rabbits were still inside, arranged in a row. Madison saw them and started crying. Not scared crying, exhausted, defeated crying. I wanted to throw them away, burn them, do anything to get rid of them, but I was afraid that wouldn't matter, that they'd just come back. So I left them there. I closed the compartment and haven't opened it since. That was 3 weeks ago. We sold the RV last Tuesday. Took a huge loss on it. The dealer probably thought we were insane selling it after just one trip, but neither of us could stand to look at it anymore. Jake and Kara won't return our calls. I've tried texting, but they don't respond. I drove past their house once. Their 5th wheel is parked in the driveway, for sale sign in the window. Madison wants to talk to someone about what happened. A priest, a paranormal investigator, anyone who might have an explanation. But I don't think there is an explanation. I think we stumbled into something we weren't meant to see, some pocket of the world where the normal rules don't apply. Last night I woke up around 3 in the morning. Madison was sitting up in bed, staring at the corner of our bedroom. "Do you see it?" she asked. "See what?" She pointed. "There, in the corner." I looked. At first I didn't see anything. Then my eyes adjusted to the darkness, and I made out a shape, small, pink, sitting upright in the shadows. I turned on the light and nothing was there, just an empty corner. But when I looked at Madison, I saw the fear in her eyes that matched my own. Because we both knew it didn't matter if the rabbit was really there or not. It was in our minds now, permanent, inescapable. Every morning since we got back, we found things rearranged in our apartment. Small things. A cup moved from one counter to another. A book that was on the shelf now on the table. Madison's hairbrush in the kitchen. My keys in the bathroom. We don't talk about it. We just fix things and pretend everything is normal. 3 days ago, our neighbors asked if we had a child staying with us. They'd heard small footsteps running back and forth in our apartment late at night. We told them no, it must be the people upstairs. But we're on the top floor. This morning, Madison found a rabbit sitting on our kitchen table. She called me at work, hysterical. I told her I was coming home, but she said no. She'd already thrown it in the dumpster outside. She just needed to hear my voice. When I got home tonight, she was sitting on the couch, staring at nothing. I asked if she was okay. She said yes, but she wouldn't look at me when she said it. I checked the dumpster. Dozens of trash bags, but I didn't see any pink fabric. Maybe she really did throw it away. Maybe I'm just being paranoid. Or maybe I didn't look carefully enough. Maybe if I dug through all those bags, I would have found something that would explain everything. But I was afraid of what else I might find in there. I'm writing this because I need someone to know what happened. If Madison and I disappear, or if something else happens, I want there to be a record. I want people to know that Fish Lake National Forest isn't safe, that there's something in those woods, something that uses the form of children and stuffed rabbits to do things I still don't understand. Don't go there. Don't camp in the dispersed areas. And if you see a pink rabbit sitting somewhere it shouldn't be, run. Don't try to understand it. Don't try to fight it. Just run and don't look back. I need to go now. Madison is calling me from the bedroom. She sounds scared. She says there's something under the bed.